So what exactly is deviant and what is the relationship between deviance and crime? If you look at the key term, deviant is defined as the violation of norms, rule, or expectation. Actually, deviant is often divided into two types. The first is the violation of formally enacted law and is referred to as formal deviant. For example, robbery, rape, murder, and assault. The second type is the informal deviance, which involve violations of informal social norm, which has not been codified into law. For example, swearing loudly in the church. So here are the key points that I wanted to highlight. According to sociologist Howard, he mentioned that it is not the act itself, but the reaction to the act which makes something deviant. Let me give you guys an example. Smoking weed is not considered deviance to smoker because they view it as natural, but for non-smoker viewpoint, the way we react to it is what makes smoking weed deviant. And in our current society, what is deviant to some may not be deviant to the other, meaning that some act is acceptable in one culture, but may also be considered deviant in another culture. The point is that the question what is deviant behavior cannot be answered in a straightforward manner because deviant is defined by its social context. And to understand why some acts are deviant and some are not, it is necessary to understand what the context is and what the rules are. So as the rule and norm vary across culture and time, it makes sense that the notion of deviance also change as well. And all of us are deviant to one another because we all violate norm from time to time. Now, let us talk about the social control. When a person violates a social norm, what happens? A driver caught speeding will receive a speeding ticket. A student sleeping in class will get a flying marker from the professor. So, as you can see, all society practice social control, which is the regulation and the enforcement of norm. And the goal of social control is to maintain social order, which I've already put its definition in the key term below. Now, let me give you guys an example. Imagine social order as an employee handbook and social control as the manager. So when the employee violates a workplace guideline, the manager step in to enforce the rule and you either get fired or demoted. And if you follow the rule, you will get a promotion or a raise from the manager. But why would we get a raise though? The answer is to encourage you to follow the social norm. And why do we need to follow this social norm? Because norm maintains social order by making behavior more predictable. Then again, what would happen if we violate against this norm and make this social behavior become unpredictable? The answer is simple. Without norm, the world shall experience chaos and become out of control. That is why our society regards something deviant as threatening. Therefore, all of us are programmed to follow the social norm. So the violation of social norm or deviance result in social sanction. Sanction can be positive as well as negative. Sociologists also classified sanction as formal or informal type. And formal sanction doesn't always necessarily have to be negative or positive alone, and so does the informal one. In fact, they can be both. Formal sanction are way to officially recognize and enforce norm violation. On positive sides, employee may receive a bonus for increasing the profits of their cooperation, while someone who commits a crime may be arrested or imprisoned. Informal sanction, on the other hand, emerge in face-to-face social interaction. For example, swearing loudly in a church may draw a disapproving look or even verbal reprimands, whereas behavior that is seen positive, such as helping a disabled person, may receive positive informal reactions, such as a smile or a praise. So, different degrees of violation result in different degrees of sanction. And both types of sanction play an important role in social control because it can be served as an encouragement for people to follow or as a bad example for people to avoid. So if norms are essential in our social life, why do people violate against them? Many analysis has been conducted as a mean to answer this question. So now we're going to take a look at the explanation of deviant based on three different approaches. From biologist perspective, from psychologist, and last but the most important one, the sociologist perspective. In sociobiology, sociobiologists assume that people commit crime or deviant because of their genetic predispositions, which mean inborn tendency leading people to become deviant. They explain that people with low intelligence, people who were born with an extra chromosome, and muscular bodies are most likely to commit street crime, such as rape or robbery. The theory was a failure because it only explained the probability of people who are most likely to commit a crime. In fact, it doesn't explain why people are committing crime or deviant in the first place. Moving on to the next part, which is psychological approach. In psychology, psychologists propose that an individual personality is the major motivational element driving people to deviance. They think that people who has a personality disorder have a subconscious motive that drive them to committing crime. For example, people with bad childhood experience tend to have some scar on their mind. Thus, they become more prone to crime when they grow up. However, just because they have a bad childhood experience doesn't always mean that they will 100% become a criminal in the future. So this theory too failed to explain why people are becoming deviant in the first place. Because sociobiology and psychology fail to prove the relationship between deviance and criminality, here's where we can turn to a sociological approach, which focus on factors outside individual. So unlike biologists and psychologists who believe genes and personality are what lead people to deviance, sociologists think that social influence, such as socialization, membership in subculture, and social class are what leads people to break the norm. And to explain further, they apply three sociological perspectives, such as symbolic interaction, functionalism, and conflict theory, which will be covered by Kanigan, Lagane, and Piron in respective order. Alright, so that's it guys. For my part, we did learn about how to define deviance and what act are considered as deviant. And I think I've pretty much covered about social control and social sanction. And we also did talk about three different approaches on how biologists, psychologists, and sociologists explain the relationship between deviance and criminality. So now, let us continue to explore more about the three perspective and sociological approach which will be presented by Kanigan.